All right, hello everybody, and welcome to another DataFlex livestream. My name is Bram.
And I'm Harvey Bier.
And today we're talking about something entirely different as opposed to last week, where we talked about 26 and the new release, which, by the way, you can find in the description. But today we are talking about the DataFlex TechStack project. Harm, can you tell me what and why that is?
So the DataFlex TechStack project is basically about a new runtime. So we have been building a new runtime, and this is the first preview release of that new runtime. And why do we need a new runtime? We want to focus on different platforms again. The DataFlex runtime has been, on Windows for a long time now. It has been, grown into Windows, you could almost say, or Windows has grown into the runtime. And this new runtime is going to be platform independent again, and it will allow us to run, servers on Linux, macOS, of course Windows as well. But it's also going to allow us to run on WebAssembly, which will provide us the ability to create offline apps and wrap these into Android and iOS apps, so you can actually install DataFlex apps on your phone.
Right, which is also, of course, the first focus point of this very first release, which, by the way, we released yesterday. You can also find the download link and other things in the description there as well. And one thing also to notice is that, of course, this is a live stream, so there's only so much you can cover. There is a link in the description referring to the new DataFlex presentation that I did at FlexRoads, which is the major DataFlex conference. Of course, we would love to see you next year as well. But if you do want the full backstory and how things came to be, you can check out that video as well to give you a little bit more context. But of course, let's get just started, I think. But before I forget, of course, we will be answering any questions that you might have during this live stream. Mm-hmm. We have many people moderating here as well for the small questions that you might have, and otherwise they will be referring them to us. If your question was missed for whatever reason, of course, you can always answer them once again on the forums. We have a technology stack forum available to you guys, so you can ask any question that you might have there. And with that said, let's get started. So first off, where do we get the DataFlex TechStack release?
Yes, good question. It's on the DataFlex Download Center, which you find at download.dataflex.dev. And if you go there, you're of course used to going to the DataFlex Studio, but you should not do that. You should go to TechStack. And so we have a separate TechStack section here. And if you go here, you can download the latest version. And note that we are planning to update this version quite regularly because this is a technology preview. We expect this to be a longer release cycle, which will include multiple, basically monthly updates, something like that. And so it's also, you should, technology preview kind of means that it's like a pre-alpha thing. Yeah. So there's things missing, and we'll get to that later as well. But so if you download this, you get an installer, as you know, and this is installing as DataFlex 27. So it installs side by side to 26 and
any other installations that you might have. Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So.
Yeah, and of course, as you already noticed, so any future releases will be available here as well. Everything runs side by side, and that is all done, which is of course good to know that this is a new runtime. And you might be wondering, well, what is happening to my DataFlex that I have been running for years? Well, the nice thing is this new technology called Toolchains, and everything will be running side by side. So the studio will be capable of handling multiple toolchains, and any updates for those toolchains you can also download separately here. So that's, I think, good to know in the future. But of course, things will get clearer as we get accustomed to this ourselves as well. So do look forward to that. All right. Now, of course, the main thing that once you did install 27 is, of course, well, where do I find any information on what TechStack is, what it does, how I work with it, and that kind of stuff. And that's, of course, the doc.
Yes. Yeah. So if you install DataFlex 27, you get the studio. And on the Start Center here, we have two useful links. One is to this video that we're actually recording right now. And the other one is actually going to the online docs. And basically, we have a separate documentation that we published for TechStack. It's called tsdocs.dataflex.dev, and this will be separate for a while. Over time, we will it should come closer together to the main product. But for now, we keep this as a separate piece of documentation. And if you're going to start testing TechStack, then this is basically
the place to be. Yeah.
The place to be. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is the idea for this live stream? It's also nice to notice that once again we're doing multiple of these live streams or status updates, whichever comes in handy at that time. Where we have first this live stream where we'll mainly be covering what is 27, how does it work, how do I get started, and then one of the biggest features of TechStack is how data is handled in DataFlex TechStack, which is different from what you might be accustomed to, and that is for next week. So up front here is that next week, same time, we'll be doing another live stream and where we'll be completely covering the data in DataFlex. So let's get started with the getting started, I suppose, and you can play along as well if you have 27 installed. As we'll just be mostly walking through the getting started and give you the extra insights and context as we go on.
Yes. Yeah, and of course it would be impossible to cover such a big project in one live stream.
Yeah.
It would be a really long live stream, and we don't want that for anybody. So, all right. So the getting started section in TS Docs is actually it starts with installation, and
it covers pretty much what we said. Yeah.
What we just discussed, and now the next step. The next section is about toolchains. Bram already explained it briefly, but basically, what is a toolchain for the studio? So a toolchain consists of a debugger, a compiler, and a runtime. Those are the most essential parts, and there might be some DataFlex packages involved, but it's essentially the core parts of what DataFlex needs to run. That's pretty much it. And with 27, or rather the 27 Studio, we've isolated these components into toolchains. So these are just that set, and those can now live side by side. So your current DataFlex installation or mainline DataFlex, as I'll be referring to for this bit, the one that you're accustomed to, runs side by side these new TechStack toolchain. So any projects that you might have in 26, 25, those will also, of course, when 27 releases, still work in there. And it will give you the opportunity to, when you do have a new project or anything like that, you can create that project in a TechStack toolchain or anything like that. So that's essentially how it allows the studio, as well as you guys, the developers, to determine what tool do I need for the job, and how do I get there. So that's the toolchain in the essence, I guess. Yes. So basically one studio and multiple runtimes, debuggers. Yes. And you can pick per project what toolchain you're using exactly. And then there's the two flavors of toolchains, the DataFlex Windows, which is the DataFlex that you've known for a very long time, the existing runtime that allows you to build Windows UI apps and web apps on Windows. And then the new cross-platform runtime that we're going to be focusing on in these live streams. Yes. Okay, good. So this is also described in the toolchain section on the documentation. The next step in the getting started is creating a new project. So we're going to go into the studio and we're actually going to create a new project. Yes, exactly. Let's just get our hands. Yes. So this is a freshly installed studio, DataFlex 27. There's nothing here. Right. There's also a sample here, actually, the conference app. I think we're going to cover that after creating a... So let's create a new workspace. And what we see here is that there is a new choice here. One of the main choices is uses Windows toolchain or uses technology stack toolchain. And there's a good reason for that, is that, well, not all the features in the studio work yet in this very first release. Also, they are at data level, which of course we'll be covering in full in the next live stream, but they're a bit incompatible as such. And that's why upfront is going to ask you per workspace, or rather if you're creating a new workspace, what kind of toolchain or what kind of project are you going to try to build? And that's why it's asking you here to
make that choice so that the studio can adjust itself to your project needs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's mainly the studio looking at this. The compiler does not look at this
No.
setting at all.
No.
But it's if you select technology stack, you'll see that it also skips the connection step. That is a thing to notice, is that it's a technology preview. So the studio is not complete yet. It doesn't have full support for the data binding of the technology stack yet. And things are a little bit more manual there for now. And that's why some things in the studio are turned off. And this step is an example of that. All right, so now we have created a new workspace.
Exactly.
And I can go to configure workspace here, and I can change my choice, change this
if you want to change your mind later.
Yes. But we're not going to do that now. We're going to stick with TechStack.
Yes. Let's create a project, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the most logical thing to start, which is also partially what the Getting Started does, is show you the difference between these tool chains. So to hopefully let it make a little bit more sense. So I think we can best create a new process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm choosing the processes. Note that these templates, to these project templates, are actually also filtered by the choice that you made.
Yeah, good.
So this only shows things that are compatible with TechStack, or you can use on TechStack. So processes. So this is basically like an empty...
A little test,
Yeah. So this creates a little hello world program. And what we see now in the upper left corner here, where we used to have the choice.
64-bit and the 32-bit options.
Yeah, you can now actually select which toolchain you want to use. So there is a couple more options here now. And now it only shows the technology stack toolchains, but it can also go to more toolchains here. And then you see all the toolchains that are installed. And what you'll notice here is that the technology stack toolchains are installed in program data / DataFlex toolchains. That's basically where we on Windows have established as the default location for where DataFlex runtimes and compilers and toolchains
pretty much everything cross-platform
are going to live. And we can choose between WebAssembly or native on TechStack, and we can also choose the Windows toolchains. And here it shows program files DataFlex 27. So basically, it uses the compiler and runtime that are installed in the DataFlex program.
As you're accustomed to.
Yes, that's the. So we can also switch this project to a Windows project, Windows toolchain, and
the use UI statement.
Yeah, now
which of course you'll notice is that we also tried to clean up some of the things, so we try to keep a tighter structure.
Change the program a little bit to make it run. So this basically shows a real simple program in DataFlex Windows. I don't know if you guys still know the show line on Windows that actually opens an output window. And this also illustrates that DataFlex Windows always creates Windows UI executables.
Completely focused on business user interfaces. Yeah.
And now if I switch it back to a TechStack toolchain like native 64, and I run the same code, it recompiles. And what we see now is that it shows as a console application. And what is also interesting to note, and this is something to be aware of, that it's going to be important to see the difference between
what toolchain you're actually using.
You're on. And one of the things that the technology stack debugger does is it actually it shows the
pretty much all the state that Windows provides.
Debug information from Windows. So this is actually quite similar to what Visual Studio would show on its output panel. So you see which DLLs are loaded by the process. And what you also see here is that it has loaded the runtime, DFVM runtime lib, from the toolchains folder. I actually see a question coming in from Alan. Does the studio itself get updated?
Yes, that is a very good question, but quite upfront. So yes, indeed, the big ambition, as you can imagine, that we want to do these updates regularly. So pretty much every month is at least what we're aiming at right now. These toolchains, which we'll cover in a minute, are completely installable separately. So those if you install a toolchain side by side, that does not require an entire reinstallation of the studio. Now you can of course imagine that at this very starting section of this whole of the technology preview, we might need to do some more studio updates. So that will, for now at least, still require you to update the studio in those cases, but we'll of course make note of that so that you know what to do. The ambition is that in the future is that, of course, we do want the studio to automatically update itself and also its subcomponents. So there are things that we are looking into to make that easier, as of course we also notice the frustrations of having to reinstall the studio every once in a while. So that's yes. So we're looking into things like that.
Yes. So during the technology preview phase, we will provide updates to the studio. Some updates will be just packages because we have the package manager. And
right.
Parts of the technology stack logic is in packages, and then we have the separate toolchain installers that we'll be using at first. But we are working on a system where that will basically kind of replace the DataFlex installer, you could say. A new installation system that will allow us to push updates to the studio and
also other components.
All components of the DataFlex installation as well.
But maybe a good thing, as we forgot, we might as well show the installed apps and show that these toolchains actually are separate components. If you go to the installed apps on Windows, you can actually also see that these toolchains are subcomponents of the studio that you install. So you can also notice this yourself. You can see it right there. So you have the default DataFlex 27 DataFlex Windows toolchain, as we call them, with the studio and all its components. And then these TechStack installations are completely separate. So you might imagine that in the future, we just release an update to a toolchain, you install it side by side, and then you will be done. So that's pretty much the start of, exactly what you're asking. So hopefully that kind of shows you the bit of what we're working on.
Yes. So let's get back to the sample a little bit. So we have now created a TechStack application. And what I wanted to show on that as well is that one thing that is actually very much the same is that it's just linked into an executable. So if you build a native application for Windows, you can actually just run it. It's an exe file, and that will actually run like you would expect.
And now I think the big thing is that we're going to create a new project, but this time the focus of 27, which is of course web app clients or DataFlex apps that you can actually run on your mobile phone.
Yes. So what Bram is referring to is in the tutorial, and when you follow it, the next step is to create a WebAssembly app. So under Create New, we now have a Foundation WebAssembly drill down, and this is basically the template for creating a WebAssembly application. If you open that, you get a new dialog, which is slightly different to what you're used to, and basically it allows you to pick a file name for your WebAssembly app. So you can have multiple WebAssembly projects in the same workspace. Actually, you can also choose a different name for your index.html, and then you can actually have multiple of those in one workspace, which is nice. My live stream app, or something. You can actually give in a title that's just put in the source code. Live stream is one word, right? Yes. Yeah. There's actually a preview button here that shows you what HTML it's actually going to generate. And it can still automatically register a virtual directory for you, because these WebAssembly apps, they run inside the browser. So they're kind of like running like regular web apps that you're used to. But then the difference is that the DataFlex code actually runs on the client, and we'll show that later. But for now, just know that you still need a server to host the application, unless you're wrapping it into a iOS or Android app, which we'll do later. All right. So I have to give administrative permissions to create the IIS virtual directory. And one thing to notice here is that it's installing all kinds of packages. So yeah, just wait until it's kind of done here, and then here we see the icon appear. So what did it create now? We have a .src file, which has a CWebClient app, which is basically the base class for client application. And if we press F7, we see that it's just,
the designer working as you're accustomed to.
So basically it's having a web UI. So that's the thing from WebAssembly. We were reusing the web app framework and the web controls that you're familiar with to build a user interface, but then we're controlling that user interface from the client without having to go out to the server for every thing. Of course, when we run it, or of course, hopefully, that's always with a demo, you never know, but
you can see that it compiles. And also of note here is that you might be accustomed to Windows immediately popping up with the debugger. Mm-hmm. The difference with WebAssembly is that it takes a little while for the browser, because in this case, as opposed to a Windows process running on your local system, this is actually the studio connecting to your web browser and then having to communicate with a tab page inside of that browser running. Yeah. And that's why if you do see a white page for 2 seconds or so, it's just the studio waiting on, hey, can I finally connect and attach? Of course, on production, that's you won't see any of that, but
yes, that's maybe if I open the URL in the browser without debugger, you see that it's just instant like you're used to. And what's a good demo then? Let's move on a little bit. And then if we add some code that basically does something useful or not so useful, so we say send show info box hello world, and we compile it. And we open it here. We see that it actually executes that, but what is important here to notice is that you open the developer tools and you go to the network tab, which I always have a hard time finding. So
it's pretty collapsed.
There it is, yes. If I click on this button, you see that there is no communication over the network. So it doesn't have to go out to the server. It actually runs on the client. And I can illustrate that a little better if I refresh it. What we're seeing here is that it downloads the index.html. The index.html includes the JavaScript, the dfm.wasm, which actually includes the wasm version of the runtime. So this .wasm file is actually the new DataFlex runtime compiled into WebAssembly code or binary,
allowing it to run inside of your browser. So
yes, and then it will actually download the FLX, which there it is. So this is the FLX that we just compiled. So your application compiles into an FLX file, which is basically the DataFlex
a jar or whatever.
Yes. So this is the DataFlex byte instructions.
Yes,
and these are executed by the runtime that it has downloaded. The nice thing is that the runtime and everything is, of course, not changing a lot, so that will be cached, and only the FLX, whenever you update your application, will have to
would have to change.
Yes, so that's basically the main thing. And then when you run it inside the debugger, of course you can also place a breakpoint. So now I can click, and we see that it stopped at the breakpoint, and the debugger just works like you're used to. So you can just go back in the call stack, see your locals. There is globals, although there is less globals than with the Windows runtime. But there is globals. So basically, DataFlex just works like you're used to. But what it did in the background, like Bram already explained, it's using the Chromium Developer Tools protocol to actually talk to the browser and to pass the JavaScript engine, because WebAssembly runs in the same space in the browser as JavaScript. So it passed the JavaScript engine, and it's talking to the DataFlex runtime in the background to get the locals and everything. So it's that's also
pretty much the amazing thing about this project. You, from the user perspective, don't even really see that much difference. But yeah, the big thing is that this, with this new WebAssembly runtime, it really allows you to build apps that will run on device, as opposed to having to talk to a server with every button click asking, hey, what do I need to do now? And now all that decision making is done by you, the developer, with that application that you built yourself. So that's, I think really powerful.
Yep. One thing I wanted to show here as well, I think.
Sure. We have enough time.
If you go to the package manager, we can have a quick look at the packages that it installed. And what we're seeing is that it installs the WebAssembly, or the WebUI WebAssembly. That's the main package. And that actually has as a dependency the WebAssembly runtime package. Yeah. And the WebAssembly runtime package is actually mainly there to copy in the artifacts into your app.html folder. So the WebAssembly runtime is the package that actually copies the .wasm files into your index.html. What is, of course, maybe a little bit confusing there is that there's two parts to that runtime. There's also the debugger and the compiler part. And those do not come in via a package, but they are selected as a toolchain and are, come in with these toolchain installers. Yeah,
so it might be a bit confusing. Of course, we will make it more or less evasive than. But,
and the WebUI package is a package that you already know, and that actually creates the copies in the JavaScript engine, the CSS theme, the CSS, and then of course we have a theme there, which has the material theme. And new is the database framework, and that is a package that contains most of the data binding logic. We'll talk a lot more about that next week.
Yes, we have two questions even. So the mobile apps looks, of course, terrific, of course, referring to the drill down. But of course, we got the question, can I make desktop web applications as well?
Yes,
of course.
You can.
We can.
Yeah. There's no reason why you could not create desktop web apps.
Maybe we can once again look at the create new to show what the project types were again. Yeah. Maybe that makes the best sense.
Yes, it does, but it's also creating confusion if we do that. Because it does show a data-dense screen foundation here. So a data-dense project, which is basically the desktop style. But then there's a word here that says server.
Yes.
So we only have the server-side template for that. We did not create a WebAssembly template for that. So we did not create a template for it, but there is no reason why you couldn't. So maybe just...
we'll make sure to add that in the next release, but it is of course good to notice that. So of course with this whole new runtime, we of course focus on getting that new deployment strategy out of having WebAssembly applications that have offline logic with connectivity to the server for data. You can of course still use the current paradigm, which is of course relatively server heavy, but might allow for easier updates or anything like that.
Or
so
the migration as well.
Exactly, for easier migration. The current strategy still works as well. So the server side or more server-sided application strategy also still works.
Yeah. So what I hope in the near future is that the default for DataFlex web apps will be and not just apps that need offline or mobile support, but any web app is to use the WebAssembly runtime to render the user interface and to have it only communicate with the server whenever it needs to access data.
Yes.
And then we're going to try to make that real easy, which is also going to be a topic of next week. But the idea is that it's going to run more like basically, I think a web application should run a user interface logic on the client that's going to log on to a data service on the server, and it's only going to download data whenever it needs to. And so that's basically how we see that. So we have, for example, a big help desk express, for example, I think could be rewritten as a
client-sided application,
client-side WebAssembly application. But that's something that we'll see if that holds up. But I think that's a better model than what we're doing right now with every click going out to the server.
Yeah.
It's
Going in on that, I think a nice question before we continue. Which database engines can be used with the WebAssembly toolchain? And that's, of course, at the very heart of the matter, which, of course, we'll cover more in depth next week.
Yes.
But maybe you want to share it, but
and I can enlighten a little bit on that. But of course, WebAssembly runs in the JavaScript space, so it's a little limited. You're not going to run a SQL server in there, like a MS SQL, or
it also doesn't allow you to communicate outside of the browser.
Yeah, you cannot just connect to any TCP port. So it's your means of communicating with the server is going to be HTTP requests. Yeah. And hopefully in the near future WebSockets, but that's basically what you're limited to. What you can do is you can access local storage, and within local storage you can also have like virtual file systems, and we also have that already built into the WebAssembly runtime. And you can use SQLite to access that. So basically you can have a SQLite database in local storage, which you can access directly within WebAssembly, and that would basically what we expect when you build a mobile app. That's going to have
some kind of cache or anything
needs to
that.
have local data, that's available offline, and maybe there's no server involved at all. Then you would use SQLite, and then when you're going to talk to a server, and then on that server you will use databases like MS SQL, MySQL, Postgres. That's
right, and you can communicate to that as you would with any other development platform using HTTP. But the thing that we are looking forward, which of course we'll cover next week as well, is something called the Data Dictionary Protocol. And this is a way to integrate DataFlex from both the server side as well as the web app client side, as we call it now. And this will provide, or at least what we attempt to do with it, is provide a seamless experience of having only one data dictionary with all your business rules, where your WebAssembly client will simply send over the data to the server, like you're accustomed to, which we'll show you in a minute, and which then allows you to store data on a server, which then goes to SQL Server or anything like that. So that's entirely up to you then where your data essentially goes. But I think that makes more sense once you see the actual sample, which we'll, I think, get into now a little bit. But unless you had other ideas right now. But
the actual sample, which is
the conference app, I would suppose. But
we're going to do the wrapping first.
Sure.
Yes, because that's the next step in the tutorial. That's
all right. I guess we'll get back to that.
Yes, let's get back to the tutorial.
Of course, let us know if that answered your question for now or did not. But we'll get back to that later.
So building an app, because that's one of the promises of TechStack, is to build mobile apps that can be in the App Store and run straight on your phone. And the way we're going to do that is by wrapping them, and wrapping them basically means you have this HTML, a little bit of CSS, a little bit of JavaScript, and our WebAssembly runtime and your FLX. You're going to bundle that together, put that in a for Android, it's an APK file, I think.
Yeah.
Android package something. And, for iOS,
let's not even try.
And the current plan is to initially support doing that as a service. Right. And for that, we have now published the app build service, or Android build service.
For now, right.
Or Apple build service. It's
a very nice name. You can use it in 3 ways. It's great.
Which right now only supports Android. iOS we're working on. And also I must say that this browser interface is actually temporary. We're planning to convert it into a wizard or a utility that you install with the studio. So then you can also store configuration with your project and run it like that.
Make it as easy as possible.
Yes. Note that you do have to log in with your DataFlex ID to access the service. And that's also so we can, prevent abuse and maybe send you a bill one day. It's So if we look at this service, it asks a few questions. We have to enter an application name, a package name, a version, so you can do updates. Right. And then it asks us to upload the zipped version of the app.html folder. So what we're going to do is we're going to our File Explorer. And here we have the app.html folder. Within here, of course, our FLX. And then the index.html, and everything is in here. And we're going to zip that, compress to a zip file. There we go. Well, let's rename it to live stream sample 1.0. Go straight to 1.0, no test versions. And now I can drop that on here. And I can also select an icon. For now, I'm just going to use this one. Of course, you might want to use your own icon. An app name, so my live stream sample. You need to come up with a package name, which is something that should be kind of unique and in the format. So de.live stream. And then down here we get to the signing. And that's necessary to get into the App Store. Maybe you can say a little bit about that.
Yes, that's quite important. It's going to ask you for a password as well as a key store file, which goes for both iOS as well as the Android platform. And it is a way for Google, as well as Apple, or pretty much any App Store provider, to make sure that you are the very same person that uploaded a first version of your app. So if you upload a version 1.0 and then later have to do an update, of course Google or Apple is going to verify that you are that very same person. And that's why you need a key store file. Of course, while testing, you don't really need it and you can just fill in whatever, but it is important to know that once you actually do want to publish your application to the Google App Store or the Play Store or the App Store, it is important that you keep that key store file. It's very important. Do not lose it. We do not. We are not going to store it. Everything that is done on this server is automatically deleted after the build is finished. So we don't not keep any of your data or anything like that. It's very important to know, which partially is appreciated, but it is very important that you keep that key store file safe once you actually start doing things in production later on.
Okay, I'm going to press start build. And now it says your build has been placed in the queue. And now it says that it started building. So we have a couple of builders. It's limited to how many it does at a time. And now the build is running. So basically a server somewhere is
building our little Android installer package.
Is unzipping your package. And I see there's also a question. Do we do that now?
Well, as we are waiting.
It's done.
Let's first finish this then, I guess.
Let's first finish this. Yes. So what we see now is that we can download the results of the build, which is the APK file. So let's do that. Now it has downloaded the APK file, or it's doing it. It's downloading it. Yes, it has. You can also download the key store that it generated, because I selected here to generate a new key store based on these credentials. It could have also uploaded a key
the
store.
one that you had before.
Yeah. Right. But I can also, let it generate this one the first time, save that, and the next time. So that's why you can download it, and the next time reuse it again to get the same signature on there. And what's really nice is that it shows a QR code here. And this QR code, actually, you can scan it with your Android phone. And then it just gives you the link to that same APK file, so you can install it on your phone straight away. So that's
there's one notice there is that, of course, that because it's not from the Play Store, it's going to say that's an unverified publisher. Depending on the phone or the version of Android, you might, you have to look for your own vendor of your phone on how to allow to install it. Some phones are easier and say, just, sure, I'll install it. And other ones are, you have to click 10 times on a button. So you will have to look for that yourself, unfortunately. But it is relatively easy, of course.
Yes. Of course, we could demo it with a real phone. But that's,
we didn't get to set that up in a nice way for the live stream, so
yes. So I'm demoing it with an Android emulator that's running on my on macOS here, and this is the APK file that we just downloaded, and I can drop that on here. And of course, when you use an emulator like this, it's not asking the security questions, which is a lot easier. And now it has actually installed the app, and I can run it. And I can click on the tile, and it actually shows me hello.
The show info that we
yes. Which reminds me of a feature request from Peter Bragg to improve how these dialogues behave on
the phone.
So that's one of the things that's still on the list. But this is just demoing that it actually, generates a runnable APK file.
Yeah. So what does this prove? This essentially means that the app HTML folder, when working with an app web app client, essentially allows you to package everything that your application needs to run. Of course, according to your own programming principles and what you want your application to do. And if you do not require any online connection or anything like that, this is pretty much all you need. And pretty much also asking the earlier question is that, the data binding, we will get into that next week.
Yes.
As well as, of course, provide updates to better provide that.
I do see an interesting question.
Good.
By the way.
Sure.
That's maybe we can get into that. Just to also improve basically the try to explain a little more how it actually works. But the question is, how do I use custom controls such as, for example, the Sync Fusion controls within the WebAssembly engine? And the answer to that is that basically the same way as you would do in any existing web app. So basically, you can just use a JavaScript wrapper that extends, basically you build a custom control for the web app framework, you build a JavaScript class, and then a DataFlex class, and those bindings work exactly the same.
Yeah. In practice, all web controls that were written for the web app framework should work.
Yes, because we're repurposing a lot.
Yeah, the technology that has been running stable. So why?
Yes. So the way to communicate with the JavaScript engine is the same there. I must add to that of course there is more ways now to talk to JavaScript. We haven't really exposed a lot of APIs for that, but actually using external function, you could call JavaScript functions directly. But then we are running by default we are running the WebAssembly runtime in its own worker, in its own thread. We didn't want to run it on the UI thread, on the main thread. So that's basically a limiting factor there. But there is ways to message with JavaScript. We have classes for that, and I'm sure in a future update we'll get more into that. Another question: how large is the APK file?
Sure. Why not?
We can just look that up, of course. It should be in my downloads folder. Right now it's 11 megabytes. So it's 11 megabytes. And how much of that is, the app HTML folder was already 4.5 megabytes. So that's. Do we want to get back to the script a little bit?
Yes, I think the best thing to showcase the complete package is now.
Maybe
show the conference at least a little bit, and then of course next week we'll cover all the details about it. But
yes, so when you have installed the DataFlex 27, you'll also see the conference app sample there. That is actually a sample application that we created for the training we did on FlexRoads. Yeah. So those of you who went to the training already should be familiar with this, but so this is a little mobile app that basically most interesting is to show the dashboard. Of course, it It had rooms, presenters, presentations, and it has a database in local storage where it actually stores those, so a small SQLite database, and it had the capability of synchronizing this database or downloading. Basically, it was a one-way synchronization to download these from a server. So if we run this application in the debugger, of course, you get the white screen first for a while. You see that you have rooms, conference room, training room A, training room B. You click on a room, you see, what's going on in that room. And of course, you could also go straight to presentations. There was a little search in there. So we could search for text tag and it would just filter it. And then this synchronize option here actually talks to a web service that we have published at demo.dataflex.dev where it downloads the presentation from in JSON. I can of course also show that when you open it without the DataFlex debugger. That's one thing to notice. If you open the developer tools while debugging with the DataFlex Studio, you will there will be some weird behaviors, because basically you get two debuggers on one environment. That's a little. It can get a little messy. So that's don't do it.
That's, so of course we're going to get more and more into this application during the next live stream. But what it's mainly for is to demonstrate you all these different aspects of the new technology stack toolchain that we have, what it can do now, as well as provide you, or at least show you how you can do things. Of course, we're still working on the documentation. We do have a lot. We'll cover that in a bit. But it shows you an example of how you can do things right now. And of course, things will improve, get better and nicer. But at least you have an example of, because many of you will obviously create their own little projects and experiment with it. And this can serve as a little guideline of, well, how do I get my data? How can I do things? So if you do want an example, this is what you can look out for. So the rest next week, I guess. Should be a nice surprise. So let's get back to the docs, I think, and let's get a little bit into, okay, how do we expect things to go? What can you expect in the future as well? Which is, of course, focusing more on the roadmap.
Yes. Let me open the roadmap on the screen. Put a little to the left, like Wouter instructed.
So on tsdocs.dataflex.dev, we have all the documentation concerning TechStack Toolchains. It provides API reference, which you can see also in the table of contents. So you can get documentation of how do I get out HTTP requests, all that kind of stuff. Of course, the conference app shows you that as well, but all the reference should be there. And what it also provides is the roadmap. Now, what is this roadmap? That is, of course, and we have presented this at some points where this TechStack project has 3 phases. One is, of course, the very first one, which we're mostly looking at right now. And it is, of course, building WebAssembly-based applications that run locally and only go to the server for data interaction and that kind of stuff. Then we have phase 2, which then takes into account all other platforms. So building web applications that also run on macOS, Linux, in the cloud, Docker, all that kind of stuff. So it's from what we have and what we're accustomed to with DataFlex Windows, as well as now the web app clients also going to all these other platforms and getting the same things there as well.
Do you want to mention Flextron there? No.
Well, it's a very, very good question. Exactly. So that's also, of course, where Flextron gets custom. That's still at least for the Windows side, is still at least planned for phase 1. And of course, Flextron will also allow you in phase 2 on all the other platforms to also build user interface local applitions that only run on your Mac. So you can imagine many possibilities there. And then, of course, we have phase 3, which we did put up. It's relatively unplanned, so I won't get too much into that, but you can read all about it on the docs as well. Now, the big thing about this roadmap here is that it shows you the overview, which we, of course, have on front right now as well.
Do you want to go over it?
Well, So I want to.
So here first we have runtime and compilers, and what this basically is showing us on for which platforms will we have runtimes, and here, of course, it shows that we're going to support Windows, 32-bit, 64-bit, also compiling on Windows. For now, we're not going to compile on Mac OS and Linux.
Yeah,
and also not run on it initially.
Yeah, that's of course the good thing to notice, that everything that's checked here is what you have right now. So if you would download the latest version of 27 or the TechStack project, this is what would be available to you, whereas the crosses, of course, indicate which things that have not been released yet. That doesn't mean that we aren't working on it or aren't developing it right now, but this is what you have right now. So that's something very distinct here. But
yeah, which is actually interesting because the runtime runs on all these platforms
already.
We have tested everything on all these platforms, but since you cannot do anything with it, it's
yeah, exactly. So focus point by focus point. So
yes,
there's also why these phases are there to get it out structurally.
Okay. Yeah, and here we're seeing a table about development tools. For now, development for phase 1 is going to just be on Windows.
Yeah.
We are, of course, we have the DataFlex Studio. So as you see, we are building, it all into the DataFlex Studio, so you can switch the toolchains. We are looking at other, tools like Visual Studio Code. Yeah. There's actually an initiative for providing code sense to that, and that might actually be, the development tool that's, going to allow debugging and everything like that on other platforms as well, compiling and debugging. Yeah. So that's, things that we are looking at, but yeah, of course, the main focus is on the Windows Studio. This table is also,
sadly mentioning that we're missing some things still here in Studio.
Yes, this is about what the Studio supports, and what we see here, for example, is that the DDO Explorer does not work.
Yeah,
and that's we'll get into that more next week. But yeah. Data binding works different, and the Studio hasn't really been adjusted to that yet. So a lot of things are more manual. Then we have data and storage, which also we'll focus on more next week. But we are working on multiple drivers and supporting multiple databases and backends. So yeah, that's this is the kind of there's a lot of things here. We also have APIs. Interesting. Also, we have regular expressions. Actually, we implemented that first for technology stack and then backported it to
25.
To 25, 40? I think. Yeah. Yes. JSON. We have the same level of support as we have in the Windows runtime. Yeah. The only interesting thing is XML. We
haven't implemented that yet.
Yes. No. And part of that is also that, of course, JSON somehow is more important. We do think that we will have to add XML. We'll add it at some point
for the existing web services, mostly, I think. But yes, yeah, there are many governments and other businesses that actually still need it. So we are aware of it, but it's not available in this version.
But, yes. So this is basically showing. All these different things, and our plan is to extend these tables and maintain them. And an interesting what's also going to be in this table is, for example, the question from Roel Westhoff. What limits are there on accessing sensors of the mobile phone? And I can get into that a little more.
Yeah, sure. We have
sensors on the mobile phone right now. We're wrapping a web app into a native app, which basically means that we are starting a full screen browser, and basically right now you can use all the HTML5 features there.
Yeah, geolocation, that kind of stuff, which we already provide. So that works out of the box.
That works out of the box. You can also access the camera and things like that, but there might be security warnings and things like that, but that will be supported. In the future, we will add, plugins,
more integrated support.
Yes. Plugins then will basically mean that we are going to have these wrappers, expose APIs that you can then use from within DataFlex code. So we have plans for supporting more native things there, but it's basically, we should remember to add that to these tables. That, we're planning to add plugins, but
so many things.
So many things. Yes.
We got another question. Can the studio run in Linux or Mac also? That's also kind of what Harm already kind of pointed out with the VS Code. You can, of course, imagine, just like you guys, where we have these very large Windows applications, of which one, of course, is the studio. You can imagine, of course, that, also migrating that to potentially other platforms is quite a big task.
We have the same issues as you guys.
Yes, exactly. And one thing that you'll notice in phase 3, I think that's mostly it's more the question of, okay, how are we going to develop on all these different platforms? So it's either going to be remote development, where we allow the Windows Studio, for now at least, to also communicate with a Linux machine or a Mac, which you might be accustomed from Visual Studio or other tools like that. The other is, of course, that Visual Studio Code might provide that on device, whereas if we just use the DataFlex Toolchains, which, of course, like Harm already pointed out already, mostly work there. And therefore, might that be the easiest way to get around? But we have to see how that
evolves. So to summarize what Bram said, the studio is a Win32 application. It's relying on the DataFlex Windows runtime a lot. It relies on COM, which is we're using a lot of COM components in the studio. Basically, the native code that we have in the studio, like CDS and everything, is all exposing COM interfaces. It's heavily relying on CodeJog, which is Windows only. So the studio is very much a Win32 product, and it's not going to be easy for us to port that over to Linux or Mac OS
in the short term, especially.
Yes, we are, of course, thinking about what we want to do with it, and what you might notice is, of course, that we started using more Flextron technologies in the studio. So that's slowly moving towards maybe even a studio that runs inside the browser. But we're far from that. And initially developing on macOS and Linux and debugging on macOS and Linux will likely be happening in other tools like Visual Studio Code and plain text editors.
So do let us know, of course, in the Q&A, I guess, whether you would like to develop on macOS or VS Code or whatever has your preference. I think that's good to know for us as well. So do let us know.
Okay.
Yes. I think we're mostly wrapping up. So, of course, this is, at least for the live side, the moment to ask any questions that you might still have, or things that you would like to see, or anything like that. So once again, of course, most of pretty much everything that TechStack currently covers is on the TS Docs website. Everything that you might need from HTTP to INI APIs and whatever is available to you.
Why is my history not working on my VM? Of course, we encourage everybody to share their experiences on the forum. Support.dataaccess.com and the DataFlex Technology Stack testing forum. We already, we had some customers that
questions related to form flex roads, which
that had the flex roads built. So there's already some content there that might be of interest to you. But that's basically where we are going to be available to answer your questions. Of course, also you can use HDE, Help Desk Express. But at this stage, I think it makes also more sense to.
It makes it very interactive to do in the forum. So once again, feel free to ask any questions that you might still pop up when walking with your dog or anything like that. It's, Okay, so if I don't directly get any additional questions right now, but once again to iterate, so how do we continue from here? Of course, there was the question of the live stream only being presented yesterday on the forums with the request. That was mostly related, of course, with the fact that, well, we needed to get a build out, and as always, the question of, are we...
Yes. Will we be
accepting? Exactly. Will we be releasing? So that was mostly related to that.
Next week.
Next week we will have a live stream up front, and we'll definitely strive to inform you as far up front as possible. So next week we will have the live stream mostly covering, I think, partially the conference app as well as all the database API, which are of course also partially to completely new in DataFlex TechStack, which of course will get all the insights there. You can of course look at it yourself already partially in the conference app if you are, or if you cannot wait, I guess.
And please send in questions so we can...
and send in questions up front if you have any. I think that's mostly it. And if we do not have any other questions, then I think this is mostly it.
Within the hour. No.
Exactly. All right. So once again, if you have any other questions, we'll partially stay in and answer any that you might have. And hopefully see you next week.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.